Welcome to the video about the Noble Eightfold Path. This is paper 1, Buddhist beliefs. So the success criteria for this video list the parts of the Threefold Way and the Eightfold Path. So as you can guess, there's 3 parts to the Threefold Way and 8 segments to the Eightfold Path. Define Magga, Panna, Sila and Samadhi. So there's 4 quite crucial keywords to understand here. Explain 2 Buddhist beliefs about the Eightfold Path, and explain 2 ways belief in the Eightfold Path influences Buddhists today. And also we need to evaluate statements relating to the Eightfold Path. So what is it? Today we're learning about the Noble Eightfold Path. It's one of the most important teachings in Buddhism. The key word for it is Magga, M-A-G-G-A, which literally means the path or the way. The Eightfold Path is the practical guide to living that the Buddha taught after he became enlightened. Buddhists believe it is the path to end all suffering and finally achieve liberation and reach nirvana. So the Eightfold Path links directly to the 4 Noble Truths. In fact, the 4th Noble Truth is the Eightfold Path. So let's just remind ourselves. The first Noble Truth teaches that life involves suffering or dukkha. The second Noble Truth explains that suffering has its causes, craving or tanha, and ignorance and greed and hatred as part of the 3 poisons. The third Noble Truth gives Buddhists hope that suffering can end. And of course, the 4th Noble Truth is the Eightfold Path, the way to end suffering. Please learn that word, Magga. A really good quote to sum up this is on the slide here. What I teach is suffering and the cessation of suffering. This quote keeps going back and back and back. It can be recycled and used on many different elements of the Buddhism paper. If the Eightfold Path is all about stopping suffering, then it's evident that this quote is a really good one to use. Directly from the Buddha in the Pali Canon, what I teach is suffering and the end of suffering, or better to use the word cessation. The Eightfold Path is important because it's the Buddha's solution to suffering. It guides Buddhists on how to think, behave, and live wisely. It develops wisdom, morality, and meditation, which we'll have a look at in a minute. And it leads towards enlightenment and freedom from this constant cycle of life, death, and rebirth. Buddhists do not see it as a strict set of rules. That's important. And there's not a particular order. It's not like stairs and you've got to do first step 1, second step 2, third step 3. You know, it helps them gradually improve their mind, actions, and understanding. So what is the parts of the Eightfold Path? Well, we have right view, right intention, right speech, right livelihood, right action, right mindfulness, right effort, and right concentration. It's important to know how all of these 8 are divided into the Threefold Way, which we'll have a look at in a minute. But apart from that, you don't need to know any explicit order here. The Eightfold Path is called Eightfold because it has 8 parts, but they all work together. They are usually grouped into 3 areas: wisdom, morality, and meditation. But here we'll look at each part and what it means in the daily life of a Buddhist. So you could get asked a question on the exam paper about one of these in particular. So you could get asked, for example, a 1-mark question saying, give an example of how Buddhists might follow right view or right intention or right speech. You could get asked a 4-mark question, explain 2 ways Buddhists are influenced by right speech, for example. So you need to know a few beliefs about each of them and ways that Buddhists will be influenced in their lives based on each part of the Eightfold Path. So right view, sometimes called right understanding, it's just about having the right view or the right understanding about reality, about the nature of reality. So imagine the three universal truths teach Buddhists all about reality and the way the world works, anitta, anatta, and dukkha. So studying the three universal truths is obviously a brilliant way to set the mind into the right view. The Four Noble Truths. I know the Eightfold Path is one of the Four Noble Truths, but the Four Noble Truths in its entirety, again, would be following this idea of right view. Buddhists try to see the world clearly, not through ignorance. Having a right view about karma, for example. All of this is an example of gaining wisdom, understanding the way to look at the world through wisdom. Right intention. It's all about having the right attitudes, kindness, compassion or karuna, letting go of hatred. Buddhists try to think positively and avoid selfish or aggressive thoughts. The desire to want to better yourself, the desire to want to escape the cycle of life, death, and rebirth. Before you start anything, before we start the video lessons, for example, we start with the success criteria. What is it that we intend to study today? With a Buddhist, in their day-to-day life, they need to think, what is it that I intend to do? Is it some learning? Is it moral behavior? Is it meditation, etc.? They need to have the right intentions behind their actions that they take on. So these two parts, right view and right intention, together form what we call wisdom or panna. The next three, right speech, right livelihood, and right action, are about moral behaviour, morality, ethics, living a good life. So right speech, speaking truthfully, kindly, helpfully. Buddhists try to avoid lying, gossip, insults, cruel or bad language. So right speech is anything you use with your words. In fact, it can even be thinking before you speak, or knowing when isn't a good time not to speak, for example. So it's just using your speech, but in a positive way that's going to help others, reminding yourself of dependent arising. We're all interconnected. Because of your negative speech, that can have a negative consequence on others around you and on yourself. Whereas positive speech can have a positive impact on others around you. So all of this links, the whole of Buddhism in fact links to each other. It's a philosophy that's quite tight and relates to different parts of Buddhism. Right, livelihood here is about your job. It's about your career path that you've chosen. It's a job that doesn't harm other people, including animals. For example, Buddhists avoid jobs that involve weapons or killing, exploitation, dishonesty. A Buddhist might choose not to work in an animal testing laboratory or a butcher's. So there's many things there that the Buddhists might consider before they take on a vocation. Right action, again, it's about behaving morally. It links to the 5 moral precepts. So Buddhists avoid violence, they avoid stealing, they avoid sexual misconduct, they avoid taking intoxicants. Remember the first moral precept, refrain from taking a life. Well, right action puts that into play. If anything a Buddhist does in their life to promote the well-being of others, it shows compassion, it shows karuna, volunteering, charity work, etc. So right mindfulness is being aware of your thoughts, your feelings, your actions, being in the moment, being in the present, not worrying about the past because that doesn't exist. It used to exist, but it doesn't exist in the here and now. Not worrying about the future. It doesn't exist. The only thing that matters is the right now, the present. And it's about being mindful of the present, being mindful of your thoughts that are coming into your mind. It's incorrect to say that Buddhists try to empty their mind, for example, whilst meditating. Quite the opposite. They are aware of the thought processes flowing through their mind. They just don't cling on to them. They're aware of them, but they give no judgment to them. They just let them move on. Mindfulness helps them better understand themselves. It helps keep them calm. It could simply be just sitting outdoors, listening to the sound of the birds and the wind, feeling the breeze, using your senses, but being in the moment and not caught up with thought or judgment. Right efforts, putting effort into all parts of the Eightfold Path, really. Right effort, being dedicated, particularly to your meditative practice. So Buddhists will realize that they have to not just meditate, but they have to put effort into that meditation. Meditation, you might say, well, it's not easy to meditate, and Buddhists would agree with you. It's not easy. So right effort is about putting that extra bit of dedication, that bit of resilience, that bit of mind power to the practice of meditation, but also to the practice of wisdom and ethics as well. And right concentration. This is about that right focus in meditative practice. Buddhists train their mind to become calm, clear, controlled. And obviously there's many types of meditation. There's samatha meditation, where they would focus on tranquility and calmness and stillness. And then there is vipassana meditation, where they'll concentrate on panna, wisdom, and the teachings, the dharma of the Buddha. So this is the Eightfold Path. It's really good to just try and memorize that list, not in any particular order, but memorize that list and try to remember what each one of them is talking about, and also an example of each of them. So the Threefold Way divides the Eightfold Path into three sections. So right view and right intention form wisdom. And you do have to learn these words. Panna means wisdom. Sila, ethics, morality, good behavior. So that's your right speech, your right action, your right livelihood. And samadhi is meditation, right effort, right mindfulness, and right concentration. There's not much more to say about this. I mean, you could get asked, samadhi is the most important part of the Threefold Way as an evaluation question, for example. You could get asked a 1-mark question saying, give an example of a part of the Eightfold Path that is found in Sila. And the answer would be right speech, action, or livelihood, for example. Just make sure that you're aware that the Eightfold Path can be divided into these 3 parts, these 3 subdivisions: panna, sila, and samadhi. Okay, so a couple of questions. Which is not a part of the Eightfold Path? And the answer here would be right comma. Another one. Which part of the Eightfold Path fits under panna or wisdom? And the answer to this one is right view. So right view and right intention are the 2 parts of the Eightfold Path that fall under panna. What is meant by the term samadhi? And the answer here is meditation. And another 1-mark question. Give one way Buddhists can practice right speech. And on this one, I actually have quite a few different responses. Tell the truth, think before you speak, know when it's not appropriate to speak, only speak with compassion, do not swear, speak kindness with manners, for example. There's actually... Okay, so a 4-mark question. Explain 2 ways belief in the Eightfold Path influences Buddhists today. So pause the video and have a go at this question. An example of an answer is in front of you. Buddhists believe that right view develops panna. They believe in right view that develops panna, wisdom. So that's one belief. This makes Buddhists, because it's an influence question, attend a Buddhist retreat and listen to sermons given by monks and nuns about the Dhamma. Many other ways you could have answered that. As an influence, you could have talked about reading sacred texts like the Pali Canon to understand the Dharma, or engage in mantras, chanting over and over again to try and fix your mind on a particular bit of the Dhamma. Buddhists believe in right action that generates positive karma. This makes Buddhists do good deeds that show karuna and metta. Remember, karuna is compassion and metta is loving kindness, such as volunteering at an elephant sanctuary, for example. There's many examples I could have given there. Again, that's all you need. There are 8 parts, but I've just decided to choose 2. You could have given right effort, right mindfulness, or right concentration, and talked about meditation in your influence, but that would have been going too far. So there's an example of a 4 out of 4 response. Explain 2 Buddhist teachings on the Threefold Way. Very, very similar. You're talking about the Eightfold Path, but you need to be explicit about the Threefold Way in this response. So can you pause the video and have a go at this question? Right, so in front of you, I've given you an answer that scored 6 marks. Samadhi is one part of the Threefold Way. See that I have actually explicitly named one of the Threefold Way there, meaning meditation. So that would score 1 mark. This allows Buddhists to still the mind and live in the moment, resisting the temptations of Mara. The Pali Canon states, "You are defeated, evil one." That was the Buddha saying that. This shows that the Buddha was able to ignore Mara by meditating under the Bodhi tree. So the idea there is, by meditating, we can still Mara's influence on us, and therefore you can use the quote, "You are defeated, evil one." I've chosen ethics next. Right action is part of sila or ethics within the Threefold Way, and Buddhists can behave well and generate positive karma by showing karuna and metta in their deeds. And finally, an evaluation statement. The Eightfold Path guides Buddhists in everything they do. So, let's evaluate this. Arguments for, well, yes, the Eightfold Path covers every part of life. It covers thoughts, the views you have in your head. It covers your speech. It covers your behavior. It covers even your job that you do in life. It covers meditation and mindfulness. So a lot of things that Buddhists would do in their everyday life is found within the Eightfold Path. The Buddha directly taught the Eightfold Path as the solution to suffering, a way to free yourself from the cycle of life, death and rebirth, samsara, and achieve liberation in nirvana. It is the Eightfold Path that can help you become enlightened. It combines wisdom, morality, and meditation, everything needed for spiritual growth. And if you are aware of arhats in Theravada Buddhism, an arhat is a perfected person. Well, what have they perfected? The Eightfold Path. Bodhisattvas, in particular, in Mahayana Buddhism, have cultivated the skill of compassion, but also of wisdom. That's panna. Again, part of the Eightfold Path. It's practical. It can be applied daily. It's relatively easy. The idea of think before you speak. The idea of look after other people and don't harm others. The idea of sit still. They're really practical, easily applied bits of practice. It shapes ethical decision making. If you look particularly at right speech, right action, and right livelihood, they're all about metta, karuna, ahimsa, good karma. It helps reduce craving or greed, hatred, and ignorance from Mara. It connects closely to the Four Noble Truths. Obviously, Magga, the Eightfold Path, is the 4th of the Four Noble Truths. So many Buddhists base their whole life around the Eightfold Path. There's many arguments that you could give supporting it. And in your paragraphs, you can go into detail, particularly about panna, wisdom, sila, ethics, and samadhi, meditation. But it's not the only guide for Buddhists. The whole Dharma, the Dharma as a complete unit, the whole, is the important thing to study. I pay refuge to the Dharma, it's not I pay refuge to a part of the Dharma. You could argue that the Sangha, the Buddhist community, is essential for support and guidance. So it's not just the Eightfold Path, this is a communal religion. So it's good to go and speak to other Buddhists that have lived the path and have experience, and they can be a fantastic guide. That's why retreats are so big in Buddhism. You could say that although the Eightfold Path does talk about meditation, some forms of meditation in Pure Land or in Zen meditation, for example, go a little bit further and add their own take of meditation. You could say that the 5 moral precepts are probably a better guideline because they're clear. Instead of just right action, which is open to interpretation, the 5 moral precepts give really clear guidelines on how to live, such as refrain from harming a life, refrain from taking intoxicants, refrain from wrong speech, refrain from sexual misconduct, refrain from taking what is not freely given. So you could argue that they are more precise and clear in their guidance. Don't forget there's lots of extra beliefs in Mahayana Buddhism. They might talk about bodhisattva ideal, they might talk about the Buddha nature within. None of this is explicit in the Eightfold Path, and that might be more of a guide, a bodhisattva out there praying to a bodhisattva, somebody that's remained in the cycle of life, death and rebirth despite being enlightened, might be a much better guide towards your own enlightenment. Some may struggle to follow all 8 parts of the Eightfold Path. Some of them might be really difficult. Meditation, again, is not easy. How much effort does right effort demand? You might struggle with lots of the wisdom that's had to be learned. You might need a lower starting point if you're early on your Buddhist journey. Enlightenment also involves wisdom that's gained through experience, not just the list of the Dharma. So experiential wisdom, you could argue, isn't really explicitly mentioned in the Eightfold Path. And many Buddhists feel that all Buddhist teachings, the complete Dharma, provide guidance, not just the one path. So some Buddhists may see the Eightfold Path as central and complete, sums up the whole of Buddhism, while others believe it's essential, but it's not the only guide to being a Buddhist. Thank you for listening.